So this is a very special session because you're getting 2 product managers for the price of 1. So you get a bonus. And depending on your perspective, the bonus is either me or Lindsey. Not sure which of us is the bonus, but and I just wanted to clarify so you don't think you're in the wrong room. We did change the title of this presentation. It was supposed to be What's Next in Puppet Enterprise. And because our solution obviously includes a lot more than what we today call PE, we renamed it to be more accurate. So just so you don't think you're in the wrong room or you somehow wandered in here. In the right room. So if there's one thing that I want everyone here to take away from this presentation, it's a sense of excitement and a sense that you're going to be seeing a lot of value from Puppet Labs over the next year or so. We're investing really heavily in a robust enterprise class platform. You've heard a lot about that, about the Puppet server so far this conference. We're building solutions as applications on that platform. So these are really solutions to real problems you guys have, real workflows that you follow. And we are increasing the rate at which we can deliver those solutions. So we're getting more agile internally. We're going to be delivering more solution value to you guys more quickly in the coming year, year and a half. So first, I'm going to walk you through a quick introduction to our team and what we do. Going to kind of divide up our focus areas and explain where we're focused in 2014 and where we're going in 2015. And then Lindsey's going to dive into the detail of 2014 and the releases that we've just had, the releases that are coming up. And then he'll pass it back to me and I'll talk about futures kind of over the next year and year plus. So who are we? This is one of the laugh lines, just by the way. So with the right lighting and the right hairstyle, that actually could be me. But as Melinda so kindly said, I'm the director. I lead this kind of motley crew of product managers, one of whom is Ryan Coleman. He's sitting up here in the front heckling. And he is over a very wide area we call Dev and Deploy. This is essentially tools for testing, for writing, testing, version controlling Puppet code. He's also been the longtime product owner over the Forge, which is the community repository and now of supported modules as well. The newest addition to our team is Beth Cornills. She is a longtime reporting expert. We call her area Insights and Visibility. And we do that because we want you to know that it extends a lot past reporting into stuff like everything from notifications to the ability to just extract the data that you need from PuppetDB and put it into your own tool sets. Mike Coleman is another member of my team who essentially has 2 day jobs. One is on the partnership side. He works real closely with our strategic partners and their product teams. So he works with VMware and Cisco, et cetera, to bring those joint solutions to market. And he's also in charge of what we call node lifecycle, and that's that idea of bringing up new infrastructure and bringing your existing infrastructure under management with Puppet Enterprise. So Lindsey Smith, believe it or not, that picture was taken when he started at Puppet Labs. That was only a year ago. He's obviously aged really terribly. So somebody needs to tell his boss to lay off because this job is really too stressful. So all joking aside, Lindsey is a rock. He has been over every Puppet Enterprise release over 2014. So he's the primary guy on Puppet Enterprise, and he is also over what we call command and control, which is the ability to affect ad hoc change, to kind of run Puppet on command. Today we have M Collective and also live management in the console. We're doing more improvements around those areas. And then finally we've got Eric Sorensen, another longtime community member. He's actually not that scary in real life. And he works mostly on the platform side and with the open source folks as well and with the community. Okay, so now that you know who we are, what do we do? And I just wanted to ask you guys, so after I'm done explaining, if you could tell my parents, because every time I see them, they ask me, what do you actually do for a living? This has been going on for about 15 years, so please, I'll give you their number. But we don't really design in product management. We don't really code. But the really important work that we do is to understand market problems. We really work to understand what you guys need and how you work, and we do that so that we can determine what to solve. We want to understand, what's the most painful stuff, what's the most pervasive stuff, what are really your problems that are keeping you from getting your jobs done effectively, and what can we solve effectively in Puppet Enterprise? What's within our core competency to solve for you? We work with all of these various engineering teams to come up with solutions and then to shepherd those solutions through the development process. And that's everybody from our great friends in UX, a couple of whom are here in the front row, to the engineering teams, to QA, to documentation, et cetera. And then finally, we collaborate, and we collaborate with pretty much everybody at Puppet Labs, as well as with our customers to make sure that those solutions are released successfully into the market and continue to be sort of run successfully at our customers. At any given point, we're actually doing pretty much all of these at once. So it's not really a linear or even terribly circular process, because we kind of rinse and repeat constantly. But for you, really the most important area to understand, or the most important area for you to take notice of, is that we are working to understand your problems. And we'll give you a little information at the end about how you can work more closely with us. So what are our focus areas? And there's a lot of ways you can slice and dice roadmap into different themes. And so what I've done here is kind of 3 basic buckets of scalability, productivity, and ecosystem. And scalability is really focused on that significant enhancement that we're doing to the underlying technology of Puppet Enterprise. Our director of development, Deepak, some of you guys might know him, he calls it lean, mean, and bulletproof, which I think he should. So we're doing the significant enhancement of the platform, and on top of that, we're building toward productivity. We're building solutions as applications. Productivity is all about functionality that solves your problems. It enables you to serve your customers more effectively, more efficiently. It allows you to reduce your cycle times and really serve the needs of your business more effectively. And then finally, ecosystem. Well, as you know, we're not just about kind of depth of configuration management. We're also about breadth. We know that in the enterprise, there's an awful lot of solutions, platforms, and for that, we have an ever-increasing number of supported platforms. We have the Forge modules, introducing supported modules, and it's really to enable you to manage more stuff, as well as those third-party integrations, so that we work with the solutions that you're already using in your companies. Sure. Pardon me? No, not at all. Oh, really? No, not at all. So, sorry about that. Did everybody hear me? Should I start over? Or? Okay. All right. Okay. So that's where I'm going to leave you for a minute. So this is our focus areas, and Lindsey's going to walk up and take you through more detail about the releases that we've done and that we have on tap for this year, and then we'll switch back and I'll talk to you more about futures.
Thanks.
Sure.
So,
I can't hear you.
hello. I'm gonna talk. What? Did you? No. I'm getting shaking heads from the front rows. I'm in the middle. All right. I will just shout. No, I won't shout.
Do you want a hand mic?
Thanks for coming. It sounds like I'm on. What am I doing wrong? Okay, thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. And like Susannah said, I'm going to try to catch you up to what we have already delivered, what's coming in the next release of PE34. Luke talked a lot about this yesterday. So just really like, in terms of, this is not just talk. These are things we have already delivered and things that we're about to deliver in Q4. So along the scalability theme, PE32 was a simplified agent install. It makes getting agents on machines drastically simpler. And in 3.3, we overhauled the master installation process so that it's easier, it's faster, and you're more likely to successfully get the deployment that works for you. And going forward, we're going to continue to improve on that so that you spend a lot less time, actually getting Puppet up and running and spend your time actually getting value from it. One of the big things that Luke announced yesterday morning was the Puppet server, which we might also refer to is the JVM master. This is a really huge technological underpinning for us. So it's going to deliver scalability and performance in PE3.4, but it's going to be something that we're going to continue to build upon and iterate over, for a long time to come. And I think kind of the specific things that, you saw a little bit of this yesterday morning. And a lot of the things that I'm talking about in PE3.4 are being shown off in the demo area. So if you haven't gone already, I highly encourage you to check that out, because Chris showed you the performance and metrics, and then if you go down to the demo area, you can see that, and you can also see some of the what happens when they start to do horizontal scale out on the new Puppet server. So
it's pretty great. So.
Yeah, that's really great work by them. On the productivity theme, quite a bit's happened over the past year or so. PE3.1 was the initial release of the event inspector. So, imagine you have 1,000 Puppet nodes, Puppet runs. Every 30 minutes, you have 24,000 run reports every day. And the answers to your questions are in those run reports. Did Puppet find an unexpected change and change it? Is my code working? Is something broken? Is everything fine? The answer is in those run reports, and that's the same whether you're running open source or Puppet Enterprise. But with Event Inspector, it slices and dices all that data for you, and if there's, you can easily see, is there something wrong? Is my code doing what I want? It's just a huge accelerator, and I think that's what we want. Part of the value of PE, of buying PE, is that that there are lots of accelerators for you. That again, you can spend your time managing your infrastructure and not wading through stuff that you don't necessarily need to be. PE3.3 was PE3.2, lots of versions, lots of releases this year. PE3.2 was the debut of Razor, the tech preview of Razor, which is policy-based bare metal provisioning. We really want to be part of the entire node lifecycle from cradle to grave. We want that to be as seamless as possible for you, and so we're starting to, build out our tools and otherwise assist you make that as easy as possible and as quick as possible and as efficient as possible. And looking forward to PE3.4, again, this is something that Luke announced, was the new node manager. And there's a lot here, and again, I encourage you to check out the demo. You can see the live code and just see kind of how all these different facets come together. So on the node manager side, the real big advancement, I think, is the dynamic grouping. We talked about managing your servers as cattle and not pets, and this dynamic grouping by what is the role of this server, what purpose does it serve for you, how do looking at your infrastructure that way, or looking at your estate that way, I think is very useful, and it's a concept that we will really build out upon over time. And in PE3.4, node classification is the first big consumer of the node grouping. And it kind of also along the lines of like what we have done and how we will proceed into the future is that there's both a service and a user interface. So they're both this node grouping and classification, and also the role-based access control that I'll talk about momentarily. There's a REST service, it'll be well documented, and then in the console there'll be a UI that uses that. So either way, either or both, it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you use this. And it's not just a PE is the GUI one, and open source is the command line one. Also very important to the node grouping and the classification is role-based access control. And if you have a small team, 2 or 3 people, a few hundred nodes, you don't need role-based access control. There's just not that much that can go wrong. But as Puppet gets really successful in organizations, and we see this over and over again, where you maybe started with 1 team, now there's 3 teams, and there's a couple of thousand servers, and there's 10 app teams that consume that infrastructure, and there's DBAs, and there's auditors, there's all these other people involved. It's a very different environment from when it was just the 3 of you and a few servers that you knew very well, and that small team that you can trust. If you want to be successful in that environment, you need something like role-based access control to provide safeguards. And the really key use case that we're picking off in 3.4 is called node segmentation. Imagine you're an infrastructure admin, you're responsible for 1,000 nodes, but there's 10 applications 10 apps and app teams that consume that infrastructure, and they've each got 100 nodes. So if you're the broad admin, you can segment those nodes off you can allow those app teams to safely have some self-service privileges. They can log into the PE console. You're managing all these groups of users in Active Directory or LDAP. The app team member can log in. All they can access and classify are their nodes, and so they can destroy their own set of 100 servers, but they can't take out the other 900 in the process. So in PE 3.4, it's focused on the node manager, and again, it's something we really want to be everywhere, so you can begin to safely delegate these PE capabilities where it needs to be. And finally, on the ecosystem, there's just so much to talk about here. Earlier this year, we launched the Puppet Supported Modules program. The idea, Luke said what the goal is. It's like the goal is that 80% of the things that are in your environment, we want you to be able to manage them with Puppet without having to resort to writing Puppet code yourself. Puppet Supported was a huge first step in that. We chose modules that are very frequently used by people, very common problems. We invested heavily in the code. We test them very thoroughly. We're willing to make guarantees about what platforms they work on, what versions of Puppet they work against. And if you're a PE customer, obviously we'll pick up the phone and support you and help you be successful with them. We want them to be as grab and go as possible, and as no code as possible. And what was also recently announced was the Puppet Approved Modules program, which is, again, part of helping you find how do you identify high quality content. And this is another step on that. Like, there are modules that must be tall to ride this ride. We have a set of standards. We have an evaluation method of evaluation. I think they're, and these are programs that grow over time. I think the initial supported module fleet was 12. It's grown to 18. There's Tomcat and Java are newly released Puppet supported modules. The F5 REST API module, Microsoft SQL Server, and Arista is coming later this year. On the approved module program, there are 24 today. That includes Elasticsearch, Jenkins, and Cloudera, and several others. So those are really huge first steps that will continue to grow over time, so that you're writing less Puppet code and you're spending more time actually managing things. For PE platforms, our two goals are deliver you support for new platforms that are important to you as fast as possible, and give you the longest tail possible of support for those older platforms, which, however much we might like that they would go away and die in a fire or something, they tend to linger for quite a long time. So in PE 3.3, kind of in the middle of the year, I'm really proud that RHEL 7 came out, and then 2 weeks later, in PE, we had full master and agent support for RHEL 7. I was really proud of our ability to deliver that, and be confident that what we delivered is going to work at production level, production quality on RHEL 7. Also in that time frame, we delivered Ubuntu 14.04 LTS, and we still have support for all the way back to RHEL 4. I think RHEL 4 is probably past EOL, but so we've got RHEL 4, 5, 6, and 7. See, you're shaking your head. See, they linger. They linger. It's like relatives at your house or something. But yeah, this is part of the value. This stuff sticks around, and we want to be there for you with PE, whether anyone really likes it or not. Also, kind of note, in 2014, we delivered a Mac OS X Mavericks agent. This is not like a big step forward for us into desktop management, but there's a number of companies, they're really successful managing their server infrastructure with Puppet. They also happen to have large fleets of MacBooks for their employees, and certain people are interested in using the same tooling and knowledge that they have in-house for server management also on the laptop. So just maybe something of interest. With respect to Windows, there's just so much to say. I literally have a laundry list. I'm going to have to read it off the page so I don't forget anything. It's completely a first-class citizen in our world, and I truly believe that our actions support that. We've invested heavily in staffing up the Windows team. We have a full-time module developer. The Windows agent team has never been larger. The Puppet supported modules program, there were a number of Windows modules in that set, and that's continued to grow over time. There's PowerShell, NTFS ACL, Reboot, and Registry, Java Key Store. In PE 3.4 will be the debut of the 64-bit Windows agent. So if you've been managing Windows with Puppet, that's kind of a welcome addition. something that we had learned and made a serious adjustment for was Windows sysadmins were coming to take Puppet Fundamentals and Puppet Advanced, and for some people it could be really difficult. Maybe they didn't have any experience with Linux or Vim or Bash, and so they're maybe even Git. So they're trying to learn Git, Vim, Bash, Linux, and Puppet all at the same time in a 3-day course, and that was just, for a lot of people, it was just overwhelming, and it wasn't even focused on their problems anyway, because they don't need to manage Etsy password on Windows Server 2008. So to kind of rectify that, there is a first-class, all-Windows Puppet training course now. I think it just launched just a few weeks ago. So once you've taken Puppet Fundamentals, is an entire course oriented around Windows-oriented problems and Windows-oriented tools. So I'm really excited about that. Also, you might have noticed that Microsoft Azure is a sponsor here. All right, thank you. My first woo-woo. That's one more than you got.
I'll try.
Duly noted. Yeah, Azure's a sponsor, and we appreciate that. Luke Knies was up on stage at Build earlier this year with Getty Images. It's a big Windows shop and a big Puppet Enterprise customer. There's a pre-built image for PE in the Azure Gallery. We talked a little bit yesterday in the keynote about our drive to native code on the agent that absolutely includes Windows. It's a first-class C-Factor, works on Windows right now, and as we continue to migrate, improve the native code, or improve the things that are running on your endpoints to native code so that they are smaller and faster, have lower attack surface, dependencies, et cetera, Windows is going to be right up there. And we have a good, strong community of Windows users. So there's somebody like OpenTable is a great example. They contribute a lot of code, Windows-oriented code, to the Puppet Forge. So if you haven't considered Windows as a good target for Puppet management, I think now is a really good time to kind of take a step back and kind of reconsider. So it's never been more mature. Also, network and storage devices is an area that's really starting to come along. I think because your presence here indicates that you buy into the value of managing your compute devices as code, that's a very powerful concept. And you probably also buy into the concept that you can't just go buy infrastructure as code tools and then call yourself DevOps and you're magically agile. That there's a combination of tools and technology and organizational change that kind of transforms organizations. The network and storage device vendors of the world have come to recognize that as well, both on the tooling, and we need to help our customers change the way that they work. So in the middle of this year was the beginning of the Puppet supported program, and the launch partners were, you may have heard of some of these people before, Cisco, Dell, F5, Cumulus, Arista, Huawei, NetApp, Brocade, and EMC. It's moving forward, and like I said, I think they all recognize that the acceleration you can get from managing your compute infrastructure with Puppet is something that they desperately want to provide to their network and storage vendor customers. And I think that actually, like the Arista stuff I think Arista's here, and some of their modules are coming out very soon. And kind of finally, our other ecosystem integrations. Obviously, VMware is a very large partner of ours, long-term partner of ours. We have a number of integrations that we already delivered. There's some VC-AC integration that came earlier this year, and there's also like vCenter Orchestrator integrations coming up. Again, there's a whole demo station for Puppet and VMware integrations. Also, one that's really interesting to me is ServiceNow. They're really good at automating the people side of workflows, and Puppet is good at the machine side. And I mentioned self-service briefly before, and that's a very, very big driver that I see when I talk to people. And what they put together was, if you have ServiceNow, you can put together a self-service portal. You have some app developers somewhere out in the world that they can request. They have permission to request this app stack or that app stack or whatever. And ServiceNow manages the whole, what can they pick, who's allowed to ask, who needs to approve it, who gets charged, and does all of that human stuff. And then when it's all done, yes, you are allowed to order a new LAMP stack and yes, your department will be charged. It tells Puppet we need a new lamp stack, and Puppet goes and does it for them. So I think it's a really complementary solution. So if you're using ServiceNow, do check that out. And kind of finally, there's Microsoft is also being a very good partner for us. That they're very engaged about us having Puppet be really, really effective in Azure, because my personal belief is that they want it to be a very successful general public cloud, not just as a place to run Windows and run .NET. There's a lot of workload in Azure that's not just Windows, and I think that's borne out in small part because they work well with us. So with that, I will turn it back to Susannah, who will talk about the glorious and brilliant future.
Thanks, Lindsey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so into the glorious future, which is divided into themes the way the glorious present is. On the scalability theme, what we have coming is along the lines of first, a more turnkey approach to high availability and replication. So you've heard a lot about Puppet Server and the changes that we've made to the architecture. So it's going to enable us to make it much simpler, more supportable, more upgradable, to add and sync multiple masters, and also the various components of the Puppet server. So replicating PuppetDB, for example, also for HA and resiliency, and we're going to enable more typical users to be able to do this. So like you don't have to be a DBA to replicate PuppetDB. So that's one aspect that's coming that's going to help our customers really scale out and meet those enterprise class requirements. We are also on the agent side. I think you've heard something about this also so far at the conference, but we are rewriting the agent. We're reducing the footprint of the agent while improving its performance. So like rewriting factor, for example. And the way we look at it is, you guys are kind enough to let us install an agent on your servers, and it behooves us to make that drag as small as possible, make that footprint as small as possible, and not really use a lot of the capacity, the compute power of that server. So the agent does the job that it needs to do and doesn't create that drag. And then finally, I put GUI rewrite and redesign, and some of that is rewriting what we currently call console and constructing it as applications on a new framework. And so that's going to create a much more robust approach to GUI, so a GUI that stands up much more effectively to thousands of nodes. But another aspect of it that's really important is that it's not just about scalability, it's also about workflow and the ability to use reports, for example, rather than something that works well for 100 nodes doesn't necessarily work very well for 1,000 nodes. So it's adding that filtering, those kind of search and views that are going to be much more effective in larger installations. So when we think about productivity and applications, so I've divided these also into functional areas, and these are areas of functionality and of user benefit. These don't necessarily correspond one-to-one with what we're going to release directly as applications, but they give you a good idea of the feature sets that are going to be included. So, for example, node management, this I think I mentioned earlier when I was talking about my staff, but this is the activities that you need to first provision new infrastructure, so in a greenfield environment, bring that effectively under management into the node manager, so bring it up and classify it. And then also in brownfield environments, there's a lot of improvements that we want to make with understanding what's in your environment, installing those agents onto your nodes much more easily, and then managing that inventory, grouping it effectively and managing it over time. On dev and deploy, I think I mentioned before, Ryan Coleman heads this area up, and one of the big challenges that we have, especially with newer Puppet Enterprise customers and customers who are trying to evangelize and spread Puppet Enterprise throughout their organizations, is the learning of Puppet code, and then learning proper software development lifecycle practices. So version control, for example, how to share things with teams. And this is something we spend a lot of time, our professional services organization spends most of its time in deployments, training customers, not just how to write code, but also how to use version control and do these things effectively. There's a lot more that we can do as product to promote, good practices, whether it's productizing certain aspects that today are more sort of open source tools. We can really do a better job of productizing that relationship between version control and Puppet Enterprise in your environments. And there's also opportunities on stuff like the documentation, the training side. In addition to that, we're looking at moving up the application stack as well. So that's another part of this, is kind of higher level application deployment. Command and control. So I think I touched on this as well, but looking forward, we do have a couple of ways in Puppet and Puppet Enterprise today to apply change on demand, whether that's our tool set that's called mCollective, or live management, which is how it's manifested in the graphical user interface today. There's a lot of additional functionality and improvement we can make to help our customers make those changes on an ad hoc, on-demand basis. And so one example would be the ability to run Puppet on a schedule. So if you've got a change window, you're going to want to do scheduled change. So really improving the ease of use and the functionality of mCollective, but also at the Puppet Enterprise application level, letting you do those specific ad hoc things in the way that you need to do them, the way your organization demands that you do them. And then finally, insights and visibility. Again, I think I said this is kind of the fancy reporting name, but we really see it breaking out into a couple of major buckets, one of which is the ability to better manage the performance of your Puppet infrastructure. The first phase of that is what you're seeing with the metrics that you can get out of Puppet Server today to really help you operationalize your master, understand its performance, and troubleshoot it when you need to. There's areas for us to improve on this, potentially with notification and additional activity, sort of operational activity. And then also introspecting and understanding change. So today we have Event Inspector. So as you're running Puppet, whether that's in no-op or in remediation mode, today you can sort of detect and drill into change. There's more that we can do to kind of expand your ability to be able to do that, particularly in larger infrastructures, and kind of adding more to those workflows, whether you're in no-op, again, in simulation mode, or you're actually remediating. There's kind of more depth we can give you to understand those changes. So that's pretty much kind of the 4 areas of focus going forward. And as I mentioned, platform is really much more of the scalability, robustness, and then the applications built over are those solutions to your problems that are going to fall mostly in these areas in terms of feature sets. Ecosystem is, I kind of felt like I should just write more on this slide because we really got a good overview of the supported modules program, Puppet approved, of the stuff we're doing with the networking providers, which is going to continue into next year. As new platforms come out and we hear more and more from our customers about what they want us to support in their organizations, we add support for different server platforms, different devices. A couple of things of note are just new VMware integrations that we're expecting that really leverage the new capabilities and the REST API that we have now with the node class or the node manager. So finally, if you remember back at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about what we do, and I said, we want to understand what you guys do and what your problems are. That's really our job 1. And so I wanted to mention just 3 different great ways that you can better engage with us as a product team and help us kind of develop the solutions that are going to help you in future. Number 1 is customer visits and interviews. So as much as we can, we are in contact with our customers and with our market. And one of my favorite ways to do this is actually to go and visit a customer on site. It's kind of hard to get out of the office sometimes, but it's always very, very well worth it because it's a chance for us to talk to different folks from different teams and actually observe you working. So we really understand much more effectively what your use cases are like, what your environment is like. Interviews are great too. We do a lot of phone interviews, phone interactions, so those tend to be a little easier to schedule and manage. We also really encourage you guys, so you guys, those of you who are actually PE customers today, you pay for support. Support is also a great avenue to interact with product. So if you submit bugs and ideas that you have for enhancement via support, They can advocate for you. They can help you understand, like, are other customers experiencing this? Once in a while, there's actually an established way to do something in the product you might not know about. So it's a really good way to kind of get that consolidated feedback back to us. And we do meet with them regularly, and they advocate for changes in the product because of what they hear from our customers.
On the how you might acquire a customer visit or an interview, I would say start with maybe your technical solution engineer. Maybe if you have a question, it's something that's already solved and they can help you there. And if it is something like an idea or you have a problem or this doesn't work for me or I wish you also did this other thing, they can get in touch with us and then we can figure out how they can talk directly to you. So don't wait for us to come to you. We would love.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So, okay, so Puppet test pilots, I wanted to put in a plug, especially because if you're not signed up, you can sign up here on site. So this is our brother org, sister org, brother org is user experience, cousin org, and we're paired up very closely with these folks. And one of the great things that they do is they have a research team that we work with constantly that runs something called Puppet test pilots. And this is your opportunity, you sign up, you get early exposure to new features that are being designed, you'll get to answer surveys, we do customer interviews as well through the Puppet test pilots program. So they really have a significant influence on things like the development of the node manager. They were really instrumental in helping us kind of iterate that and design that. So great way to do it. They're across the hall, so if you want to go and sign up, they're probably there all day.
That's in the demo area as well.
In the demo area, right.
Demos.
Yeah. So please do, we really encourage it. And detailed questions, of course, you can ask some now. We've got a couple minutes left, also available in the demo area. There are a lot of folks who can help answer your questions about current and future functionality. So, anyone?
Hello, hello. Yeah, mic is open for Q&A. Let me know. Anybody?
Wow.
What's that?
Maybe we should ask you questions.
That was such a good talk. There's
Yeah.
no
That
question.
means it's perfect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
How many of you are existing Puppet Enterprise customers, provided I can see you? Okay, so it's like 2/3 or 3/4 of you?
Okay.
Okay, great. So is anybody Windows? Can you guys raise your hand too?
We have a question here.
Oh, great.
When you go to 3.4 on Windows, will the new agent be 64-bit only, or will it be 32 and 64?
The agent?
Yeah.
It'll be both.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the,
there'll be one MSI that has the 32 and the 64-bit agent. Because Ruby, it won't go all the way back to 2003, but 2008 and forward, you'll have the options for the 32 and 64-bit agent.
Cool. Thank you.
That's Windows.
you got one over there.
Yep, a couple more. I saw this hand first, I think.
Yeah, do you have any plans to sync up the version numbers for open source and Puppet Enterprise? Because it's kind of confusing with all the 3.4 and 3.6 and what else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, we do.
We acknowledge that.
Sync may not be the right word for it, but we acknowledge that it's confusing, and we are working with product marketing to fix the situation.
Okay.
I saw on the slide you had plans to improve the scalability for the masters. Are there also plans to more easily split out the CA off into another component or app that is, you don't have to do custom rsync scripts or something to replicate the CAs to other environments?
Yeah, in general, like if you've heard about Tracker Keeper and all this closure business, the broader part of the strategy is how can we, the current master is pretty monolithic. How can we start to break that apart? And so it's like, on the one hand, it lets us start to incrementally rewrite these things so that they're more performant, but it also gives us a better strategy for HA and things like that. So I don't know, I can't say exactly when that will happen, but that's the direction that we're heading. This is why this is happening, so that we can offer better HA.
I saw some other hands, but I think we're out of time. So if you guys want to talk to them out in the hall,
Yeah,
feel free.
Feel free.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks. Thank you.